Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Batista. I'm the director of Expo Idaho and the Western Idaho Fair. Expo Idaho and the Western Idaho Fair have been my home for about 20 years. I've been through staff changes, advisory board member changes, and county commissioner changes. It's been home to hundreds of events each year, several operators of LeBois Park, the Boise Hawks, the Riverside RV, University of Idaho Extension, Ada County EMS, North Ada County Fire and Rescue, and the Ada County Sheriff's Substation. Lady Bird Park and our fields have hosted thousands of baseball games and Friday night flag football games. We've been the home to everything from home shows to the roller derby competitions, from Hialdi to the Boise Music Festival. Many things around us have changed. We know that change is necessary and can be good. But we need to keep in mind all of the businesses, patrons, and community organizations that use the grounds for various different reasons throughout the year. I generally believe Ada County staff has a good pulse on the needs of the community, and over the years, we have had some great ideas emerge about the grounds and the facilities. And I want to thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to share some of our thoughts on behalf of Expo Idaho and the Western Idaho Fair. I'm now going to go into some questions that were issued to me, and I will relay the answers after I read the question. The first question is, how many acres or what's the footprint of the current Western Idaho Fair? And what do you anticipate the need for the future? Currently, right now, we use about 85 acres of the grounds for the fair. That does not include the 4 or 5 parking lots that we use. So 85 acres is what we currently sit as a footprint. Looking at future use and expansion, I believe we need to go at least another 20%, or this acreage would exceed a little over 100 acres, and still that excludes the parking lots. You know that the Expo building is regularly used now. Are you turning events away, and if so, why? Yes, we are turning events away. We have been turning away events at the tune of about 34 events right now currently, and that has no impact on COVID. These are just people that have wanted to use the facility. And the reason that we can't house them or put on their events is we just don't have the dates and or we don't have the room. We do approximately 150 events a year, or over 600 event days. So the Expo Idaho building can use some expansion. It's also during fair time, we turn away exhibitors that use that facility, the north and south, for ceramics, photos, fine arts, horticulture. We only allow so many people to bring so many events in there. So we are also short on space when it comes to fair time as well. The question is investments you would make into the Expo building. The number one investment that I would make would be a roof. That building needs a roof. We have been in a deferred maintenance project for the last 6 years of replacing roofs. We've replaced the small animal roof. We replaced the large animal roof. And the Expo building was third on the list. We're currently in a holding pattern until we see what comes out of the Citizens Advisory Group. We'd also like to renovate each bay. We've had some discussions many years ago about each bay, north, south, and central, would each have their own foyer so that you could come in and have a space barrier before you get into the building. Each bay would have its own food service, its own ticketing offices, its own bathrooms, and its own storage area. We do that, and how we would expand is we'd go on the south and the North Expo, and it's a term called saddle bagging, where you would actually add some space onto the side, like if you were to have a motorcycle and you put saddlebags on it. So,
hey, Bob.
Yes.
Would you mind zooming in a little bit on, just because there's a lot of buildings there, I don't know that everyone, especially the public, is really familiar with which building is the Expo building. If you could just zoom in and maybe put your cursor over it so people can know where you're
Thanks for the help, Brianne. So I'm going to put the cursor over the Expo building. Can you see that right there?
Yes.
That is the Expo building. And what we would do on the north and south sides of those buildings is where we would add the expansion. There's room for about probably 60, 70 or more feet on each side of that. So
Hey,
that,
Bob,
yes.
just a quick question. When you talk about the separate foyers, are you thinking that there would be like multiple events at the same time so that you could separate them out?
Andrea, that is currently the problem we face right now. Each bay interacts with each other, but they don't have the ability to separately charge for spaces. So we put ticket booths out front. We have to move portable food stands to the other bays. We have to store something in one bay versus another in order to accommodate the needs of other renters. So yes, every one of those would then have the ability to be separate, but they'd also have the ability to be connected continuously throughout this. So you could have a big home and garden show and they could intermingle between the two of them, but they'd each still have their own space for ticketing, storage, and food service.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question, Andrea?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So the next question you have is, how often is Western Town used and what are the needs of that facility? Well, to start off, first of all, that facility was built before I came on board. It's booked about 75 times out of the year. It's in a really tough location, and I'll show you where that is on the map. It sits behind the Expo building, and so it's hard to find. And the area that you need for parking is really kind of buried in amongst the buildings. So it's a nice building, but it's just hard to sell because of the location. It only seats about 150 people, so that in itself is has to be an event that fits that size of people. I really believe that building could be relocated. I don't know how easy that would be. You certainly could be relocated to another part of the ground that has more visibility and is easier to access, let's say from the main parking lot to get to the building. Right now you'd have to drive and people have to walk around the back of the building to get there, the Expo building. So it's a tough sell building right now.
And does that building have like kitchen facilities or
I'm sorry, Andrea?
does that building, Western Town, have like kitchen facilities?
It has a holding kitchen facility, yes. So they have like steam tables in there that you can hold stuff. We personally have some hot carts in there, a freezer and a refrigerator that if somebody rents the building and wants to do their own catering, we can certainly do so.
So what kind of events are held there now? Are there wedding receptions or?
There's some weddings in there. There's some quinceañeras in there. There's some meetings. It primarily has to fit the size of the event because you can only put 150 people in there. So if that exceeds that, then we go to another building, which is a small animal barn, which is about 350. And if you exceed that, then we move you to the north or south bay of the Expo.
Okay.
The next question is the Turf Club and the Grandstand. Currently, the Turf Club is not being used for anything. We are currently now trying to work with IT and the trial courts administrator. We are currently doing courts in the South Expo, but when we start being able to get to a larger number of people to gather for an event, that's going to be needed for our South Bay. So we're looking to bring fiber into the Turf Club and get that to be used for the trial courts administration at least through the remainder of this year and possibly longer. They're seeming to like the virtual court systems. Other than that, there's no other current use for the grandstand or the Turf Club other than when fair time comes. That is where we do our grandstand entertainment. We do 5 nights out there. The Turf Club becomes a feeding area for the entertainers and the stagehands. And it also becomes a place where we conduct our board meetings.
Okay.
At this time, we have been approached by like the Boise Music Festival and those folks to maybe use the grandstand as a concert venue or an amphitheater. It all depends upon how they want to configure their show when the summertime comes.
I know those grandstands are getting pretty old. Are are they still, or do they require some maintenance?
I have worked with Zach Kirk, who is our county engineer, and he's went through it. And for the most part, that building is stable and structurally sound. Aesthetically, it needs a little revamping. But when horse racing was here, those folks spent money and time and energy into making sure that was quite the place. We haven't really had any horse racing there for over 6 years. So it is in need of a little bit of attention as far as the aesthetics. But from my understanding with talking with our county engineer, the building structurally is sound.
Okay. Um, Talking about the parking lots a little bit, if you would, I know that there are a number of groups that use that surface parking for events. Is that well used? Is that, a revenue generator?
So repeat the question. Is that the question after when you start talking about surface parking? Is that what you're asking, Andrea?
Yeah, the surface parking and how it's
Okay.
used, rented out.
So the main parking area, which sits right in the middle there, there you go. That parking area is not used as a revenue generator because it serves as the parking space for any event that would happen on the ground. If that was a parking space, you need to use Western Town or the small animal barn or any bay of the expo building. That particular parking lot is open for those and is at no charge. And we keep it open that way so that we don't not criticize, but we don't, make it impossible for another event to hold an event and not have parking for them.
Sure. Okay.
The west parking lot, which is what you see right there, we do rent that out. And I got to get to my notes here. But the west parking lot is rented out for quite a few things. We rent it out for car time trials, the largest garage sale, RV shows, car lot sales, world's largest garage sale. There's a variety of paid events that we use out there. And there's some that we take care of our other government officials. There's not a lot of places that they can go and do some training, like for the EMS, for like the sheriff's office, for Garden City, for fire departments, for ACHD. We allow those folks because they're good county partners when it comes to fair time and other events out here. We let them use those areas a no charge. But other than that, we charge for events. And on average, we use that about 130 times a year.
Oh, okay.
The parking lot straight up above from there, which is considered the Hawks Stadium lot, that parking lot is not paved, and that parking lot is a shared piece of property based on the lease from the Hawks Stadium. The Hawks Stadium has their footprint, and that's what they have for their lease. And there's some parking in front of it along the sides. But when it comes to their game days, we stripe that lot and make it available for them to have their games. We do occasionally open up that west lot and we'll charge them depending upon how big the crowd is. But we do quite often allow them just to park in the west lot as part of an overflow for when they have large crowds for the Boise Hawks games. Other than that, that parking lot is used for our Friday night flag football. It's used for our Highland games. It's used for BMF. It's used for our Motor Fest. That parking really serves that whole big carnival area off to the right.
Okay. And you mentioned that carnival area, and I think most people really know, know that as you will. But what other areas of the whole grounds do you use for the fair specifically?
Well, I'm going to show you that in another map I have.
Okay.
And it's basically kind of our vision of what we have been doing out here, and thinking about and anticipating, as we knew eventually, as we followed the trail of horse racing was going to go away. We did not really try and go out there and make any big thing about the horse racing, because the facility is designed for horse racing. And in my belief, we need to make it, not make it, but let it have its own natural death, if you will, so that we didn't have people out there trying to push that out sooner than possibly it could have been. So as you go down here, and you'll see where the horse racing parking lot is, that's adjacent to the turf club there. That's another dirt lot that we don't use much. We block it off so we don't get people coming in with their cars and tearing it up. But that is part of the parking at the fair. The fair uses that parking space, the main parking spot, the west lot, the Hawks lot, and then Lady Bird Park for parking at fair time. What that incorporates is almost 5,000 parking spots. And like I said, when we do the fair, you can't put 250,000 people through 10 days and not have some parking. And when Idaho gets to the point where they're ready to pay for parking, we'll see some changes being made in how people address various events, because right now Idahoans don't like to pay for parking. And so that creates a problem in itself, just trying to make sure there's enough space for people.
Sure.
The grass areas that we talked about, which is where the carnival lot is and where the rest of the food vendors and commercial vendors go. We rent that. We rent everything. We're an enterprise fund out here. We don't give a lot away because we don't have the ability to get any funding for taxpayer support. So we charge for everything. But those areas are used as much as we can. You have to understand that they're sprinkled with a pressurized system. But when you bring in the fair, we have to shut the water off 2 weeks in advance, because the carnival brings in big pieces of heavy equipment. And we go through 10 days of the fair, and then we clean up, and it takes, that almost takes a whole month of out of the system. We use the other areas for Boise Music Festival as well, and we have to shut off the waters at some point to get those people in place so that they can conduct their business. And then we need to get them out, and then we need to get the water on again. We're one of the few places in this county that allow you to drive vehicles and put up concession stands or anything like that, where the general park systems do not allow that. So we really take a lot of pride in trying to make our grass look good, at the same time provide events at the same time, not have water or sprinkler issues invade upon their event, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we try and do that, but there's some complications. The other thing about the outdoor space is it's limited to the weather. The weather drives a lot of what we do out there in that area. And the fair is a weather event. We take a lot of risks just because we're an outdoor event. And over the years we have, and prior to me coming, they determined that the third week of August is probably, through years and years of studying, that that's a good time, that the weather generally isn't too crazy, so that you can have an outdoor event. I think that concludes the questions that you asked of me, if I'm not mistaken.
I think those are the ones that we put forward first. Yeah. But I did to ask you about the kids that are in 4-H.
Yes.
Do they use the grounds at all when it's not fair time?
We've been interacting with them, Andrea, quite often here lately. Again, you have to understand our business model. We have to charge people for what we do. So that becomes a little bit of a hurdle for some of the people from the University of Idaho and 4-H Extension. But we have been able to do some things with them. If they can find the time that fits in our schedule, so we're not having to do overtime and so forth. So there's an archery range that they've done. They've had some cooking things that they've met with in the Western town. So we are working with them as we get back into business and open things up, we're going to have some space that we can give them at no charge to continue the relationship of fostering 4-H and FFA in this community.
Okay.
Okay.
Any
Over-
other? Any
Go
other
ahead.
Ed? Ed, I think you're muted. There you go.
Apologies. Sorry about that. I just wanted to, I guess compliment Bob and staff on one side because of the versatility of the grounds, especially during this pandemic, the opportunity to have food bank distributions, PPE distributions, and maybe even potentially childcare opportunities for Ada County citizens. It shows the versatility of the fairgrounds um, when adversity strikes. Having an area like this has really come into focus on what can be done, and I appreciate Bob and his staff for rising to that occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
And I also think, having been on the fair board, the opportunity of the parking lots. I know there's been some discussion about maybe seeing the parking lots not full on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, but certainly on the weekends and Fridays, it's packed when we have expo events. And a lot of, as Bob articulated, there's a lot of citizens that want to drive and park in a lit parking lot and walk to a facility. I think there's a symbiotic relationship between having parking and the events at the expo and the events on the expo night. So, no questions, thoughts. Thank you.
Hey, Bob, I do have another question. Because at the very beginning, you said that your current footprint is about 85 acres, and you really need closer to 100, maybe a little more. What would the additional area be used for?
Right now, Andrea, we are having if the barns are beyond use back along the horse track there, so we need to find the ability because a lot of folks in the Star Eagle area have equine and horse facilities, and that's an area we're running short in. We're running short in some space to put our small animal barn and where we're going to put those animals. So we just need some expansion primarily to accommodate the growth. This community is growing, and as we grow, we're getting more and more entries. More and more people want to participate, and we're turning some of that away. But we feel if we, can keep the footprint and then have some ability to grow and add to some of the things that the fair does, we'll also enhance some of the grounds in later areas too. So we feel we need a little bit more space to continue to grow and be viable for this population that's moving into this community.
Okay, thank you. Kelly or Brianna, questions or?
Okay, I'm going to go on to another topic here.
Perfect.
Over the years, we have discussed what is the ifs and dreams of the property, ultimately trying to take into consideration the uses of today, the ideas that come up along the way, and the needs of the valley. I bring up a map to show you our thoughts. So here's some of our thoughts. And so I will walk you through this. If we start in the very top left-hand corner where the Ada County administration offices are, there's been some talk that they need additional resources for the administration office. That sits right now over the top of the University of Extension, the fire station, and EMS. Those could either stay or be incorporated as part of that. That is showing where the Hawk Stadium is. Currently, we believe that the Hawk Stadium will probably be moved or maybe, I don't know what their plans are, but you see in the far right-hand lower corner, we have an amphitheater, a sports complex stadium area that we still have envisioned as part of what that would look like. You can see the area that's got all of the fairgrounds in it. That's the footprint we normally use for fair, aside from the parking. So Ada County Administration Office, we keep the RV park. The RV park was originally designed to help support the events here. It helps during fair time with 4-H FFA kids, entertainers, carnival workers, and so forth. And it also is a very good revenue generator for us.
Would you expand that?
Pardon me?
Would you expand the RV park?
If I had the opportunity, yes. The RV business is blowing up right now. We can't put any more people in there. And I was talking to our RV operator, and they turn people away daily from not being able to have sites for them, kind of like the Expo building with events.
Okay.
We would then take Lady Bird Park, which you see we've marked as retail and residential. And that park would go back over there along the river where we would tear down those stalls and we could put baseball fields. I also see that little lake in the middle of the infield. I think that could be tied in to have a little fishing deck for kids to do off. You could put some trails back in there. People could bike to get to the fair or events. And we left all the parking lots the same. And then there's another little portion right by the stadium and the amphitheater and the sports complex that we still feel could be for some retail and residential. And the ACHD pond below that, I think there's some ways that things could be worked out that could be relocated or do something different. But that's what the staff and us have been talking about. This isn't something new to us. We knew at some point we would be having to deal with the horse racing track. But as an enterprise fund or really like a private business, we save our money, and in 3 years or about every 3 years, we invest or make capital improvements. We've been on, like I said, the roofing projects for the last 5 years to try and get caught up with deferred maintenance on some of those issues. But we feel that this really can accommodate everything. And so in my closing remarks, ultimately, we feel there is a little bit of everything for everybody here. Not everybody's going to think this is perfect. There are always other ideas and different ways that we can do stuff or interact with the various parts of Expo Idaho. But if you want Expo Idaho, if you want a Western Idaho Fair, if you want parks and open space, if you want to expand county offices, if you want to bring retail to the area, if you want to bring a sports facility or an amphitheater, if you want to add housing, all of these can be accomplished on the Western Idaho, the Expo Idaho campus. This property is one of the last remaining open public spaces in a centrally located area in Ada County, a location that has been beneficial for thousands of organizations over the years. And I'm glad we're taking a look at how this can evolve and change while keeping the integrity of its purpose in the consideration and discussion. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bob. We really appreciate your time and the presentation.
Can I field any more questions?
Doesn't sound like. I think you covered it all.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And if there's anything you need or have further concerns about, please don't hesitate to get a hold of me.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.